Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of AI in Software Development podcast by DevOn. Why this podcast in the first place? We have been using for the past 2 years a lot of AI tools in the software development lifecycle. And as a result of which, we have ended learning a lot of different practices and best practices because of implementation of these tools. And then we thought, why not share our knowledge with a larger audience and also learn from each other as such, right? So, what we'll do in the first episode of today's podcast, we are going to pitch two software code assistants against each other. These are the leading software assistants right now, one being the Copilot, another being Amazon Q. And to help me evaluate or pitch these software assistants against each other, I have my team members here, Christopher and Saurabh. Christopher, do you mind speaking a bit about yourself?
Sure, Mayank. Thanks for having me on the show. As you mentioned, my name is Christopher. So I'm working as a senior backend developer here at DevOn, and I'm excited to share my insights about these tools with you.
Excited to learn from you, Christopher. All right, let's go to Saurabh. Saurabh, you are a quality assurance specialist, isn't it?
Yeah, Mayank. So my name is Saurabh. Thank you for having me here. Hello, everyone. So yeah, I'm a quality engineer. I have total industry of experience of 13 years. Of that 13, last 1.5 have been spent in exploring these new AI tools that come in, and we have been growing along with them. They have been growing at a very fast pace. So even within the last few months, even within the last 15 days, we have learned so much.
Mhm,
So yeah,
mhm.
happy to be here to share all the things that we have understood and that can be shared with all of you. Yeah.
All right, great, great, Saurabh. We are looking forward to learning from you as well. All right, so quickly coming back to the podcast, who is this podcast for, right? We intend this podcast for anyone who is a seasoned developer, an IT professional, or just curious about how AI is reshaping software development. If you are that person, this episode is for you. A bit about myself. I am Mike. I play the role of a delivery lead at DevOn. I've been here for the last 10 years, worked with a lot of teams across geographies, and now excited for the next phase of software development, the AI enabled or AI powered software development as such. All right, so now let's jump in. Christopher, right? So before we even get into coding assistants, right, or like pitch these coding assistants against each other, what do you think even coding assistants are for? I mean, there could be an audience member who has not used these tools ever. So for the benefit of such a member, how would you even define a coding assistant as such?
Sure, Mayank. So these AI coding assistants are powered by these advanced AI tools,
Hmm.
and it is fine-tuned for coding purpose. And it also adds few more conveniences. For example, I can add it as a plugin in our code editor, and
Hmm.
instead of copy pasting the code, I can just select the code and ask it to help me understand this code rather than
Right,
copy
right,
pasting. Along with the chat window, it provides these features as well, and it is mainly
right.
for coding related and software development related techniques only.
All right, all right. So I can assume that you've been benefiting greatly from these kind of coding assistant tools, but we'll speak about that a bit later in the podcast. Saurabh, coming to you quickly, what do you think these are from a quality perspective as such?
Yes, continuing from where Christopher left off, when it comes to coding, any kind of code that we do, all of
Hmm.
us are very secretive about our code. We don't want this data to be leaked and all.
I
So,
can
coding
imagine.
assistants basically your partner within your development tool. So, the
Hmm.
development tools that we use are called IDEs. If you have
Right.
anything out there, you have Eclipse or IntelliJ or PyCharm. So these come as plugins, they get attached
Hmm.
there, and whatever code you are doing, they can help you in prompting, writing it better, fixing all the issues, or just improve the code quality. And now they have gone to that extent that they'll just start coding for
Wow.
you. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
We can add agents there. So coming from quality's perspective, it's similar as it is from developers' perspective. Whatever you are
Hmm.
doing, you can do it more efficiently. And maintain your coding standards, your development standards, your quality standards, and do everything more efficiently
All right. Sounds like
without
a
the
time
fear
saver.
of without the fear of using any third party tools.
Yeah,
Right,
man, to
right,
give
right.
an
So,
example, so for
sure.
example, let's say I wanted to integrate Google Sign-in with my
Hmm.
application. So
Right.
previously, I had to understand the underlying concept. So I had to read a lot about OAuth. I had to read
Hmm.
multiple, documentation, and for
Right.
code, I had to search through GitHub for sample code.
Hmm.
So with this
Hmm.
AI assistant, all this workflow is kind of streamlined, right? So it can help me explain this concept. It can generate the code, and if I stuck anywhere, it can also help me to fix this error, right? So what
Right,
used to
right.
take a day, now it takes hours. So I think it has
Wow. Wow.
improved our.
Right, right. I mean, sounds like a great efficiency enhancer. All right. So then now coming to the two tools that we are going to discuss about today, right? Sort of first coming to you. Why do you think we should compare these two tools? Why not, some other tools? I'm sure there are hundreds of tools in the market right now, right? So maybe we'll hear from
Yeah.
Saurabh and then we'll go to Christopher.
Like I said before, why we are comparing these two? Because they are so similar. We
Okay.
have so many tools out there, but they are separate tools. How these two work is they are plugins inside your development tool or your coding tool.
Right,
That's
right.
what we were calling our IDs. So they work as plugins within that, and the options they provide are also very similar, like
Hmm.
code prompting and code fixing and
Right,
documentation. So since they are so
right.
similar, we wanted to compare what are their differences which are not that great, what differences are there, and based on those differences we'll let it on our audience to make that call which one to go for, depending on the pros and cons of each tool. That was the
Okay,
idea.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Clear, clear. Christopher?
I think from customers' point of view, most of them will be using AWS or Azure. So I
Hmm.
think these two are no-brainers because
Okay.
enterprise trust them. There are many other tools out
Right,
there,
right.
but I think the trust is also very much important here.
Makes sense. Most of the customers end up using one of these enterprise crowds, Azure, Google, GCP, or AWS. So you would end up using one of these tools as a part of enterprise partnerships as well.
Right.
All right. So now time to dive deeper into see how do these tools work. All right. So let's go to our segment two, which is what's under the hood. Okay, Christopher, let's start with GitHub Copilot. How does it work?
Yeah. So GitHub Copilot, it uses, the models like ChatGPT 4, Gemini, Claude 3.5, etc. So what
Okay.
it does, it basically provides you a drop-down. So you can
Hmm.
basically choose the model with which,
Right.
you can interact with. So you might
Mhm.
ask, like, why do we need multiple models, right? So
True, true, true.
yeah, so each model has its own pros and cons, and we
Hmm.
want to utilize the pros more, right? That's the
Right.
main aim here. So,
Hmm.
for example, ChatGPT, right? It is very good at generating code very quickly, and it is very good at debugging.
Okay.
Whereas Claude 3.5, it can take more information and can give you a precise output. So it is very
Okay.
good at
Okay.
documenting the code. So
Hmm.
basically, you can switch between, for a coding task, you can maybe choose ChatGPT, or for documentation task, you can choose Cloud. So this is
Okay.
how GitHub Copilot works.
I would suggest do it the other way around.
So does that mean a
Right.
developer has to keep switching the models? But maybe we'll come to that later. But what I understand from your explanation is that you have a lot of flexibility with respect to which model do you want to use for what kind of task. And what about Amazon Q, the second tool that we are going to talk about today?
Yeah, so Amazon Q developer has a different architecture and a different take on
Right.
this. So
Okay.
basically, Amazon Q is based on Amazon Bedrock, right? So
Hmm.
it contains multiple base LLMs from different companies, for example, like
Hmm.
Meta, OpenAI,
Hmm.
Anthropic, and even some of the models from Amazon, right? So
Okay.
Amazon Q developer basically delegates the task. So
Hmm.
basically, it chooses the appropriate model based on the task. So
Okay.
instead of we
Okay.
choosing, so it will choose. So it is mostly like a manager. So a client comes with a request and he tells the manager, and manager based on the developer's ability and experience and expertise. So they give different tasks to different developers, right? So this is somewhat similar to that.
Okay. I thought in the AI world we are using the word orchestrator more than the
Right.
manager, but maybe we'll come to that. Okay. So just sum it up. I think what I understand is Copilot gives us more control over the model. We have more flexibility of choosing which model do they want. And Amazon Q automates the process and relies on the user's prompting skill.
Correct.
Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, Mayank. So to
Okay.
utilize these tools in a very best way, so for example, yeah, Amazon Q developer. So you have to know a bit of prompt engineering. In that way, you can help Amazon Q developer to move the task to an appropriate base LLM. Whereas
Got it.
in GitHub Copilot, all you have to do is you have to know the pros and cons of
Mhm.
the each model, and based on that, you can switch the models.
All right, clear. And you promised that we'll see some of that in action today as well.
Sure,
So
sure.
maybe it's time to move to our next segment, which is you guys are going to build a small application and using these two code assisted tools. And we are going to see what's your experience of building these tools using both of these code assistant software as such, right?
Right, right, Mike. So yeah, one of the
Okay,
problem that I have is, on the day of salary I eat biryani, and in the month end I eat the curd rice. So I didn't know what to do. So I asked my AI assistant to help it out.
right,
They said, why not build a expense tracker? So
right.
that's what I did. And to give users background, like how we are comparing. So
Hmm.
basically, I'm using Visual Studio. It is an
Hmm.
open source code editor, and I'm
Right.
adding both these AI assistants as plugins. So as
Okay.
I'm a Java developer, today I'm using Spring Boot uh, as a framework. So Spring Boot
Right.
is a framework that we use for web development,
Right.
right? So both I have created an empty project,
Hmm.
and I'm going to give exact same prompt and see how it provides the response. So let
Right.
me
Right. Right.
share my
So
screen.
in a way, we are trying to compare two models, which in layman terms could be trying to compare two different phones for that reason, right?
Right,
And
right.
they could be very similar in a lot of ways, but there will be some nuances to the way that they'll differ in terms of, let's say, their usage. All right, so let's dive deep into it and let's see what's our experience of building these or building our applications using these tools.
Yeah, Mike. So if you see on my right, so I'm creating a web application with the help of Copilot. So I have given a simple prompt, and I have
Okay.
asked, I have provided my details. So what do I need? And
Mhm.
I have also provided few technical details for it to create the project structure. And I have
Okay.
executed it,
So
and
what
I've
are we trying to
also
do there? Let's say if we quickly read, if you
sh-
could quickly explain for our audience who might not be looking at the video about what prompt have we given? Just a quick summary of it.
Sure. So I'm telling this that this is a Spring Boot application. It's a Spring Boot
Okay.
MVC, and
Hmm.
I have told it like what are the dependencies that I've added. So it is a bit technical, and I've asked it to
Okay.
identify 5 common fields that are typically
Hmm.
required to track the expense. And I've
Hmm.
also told us to create a single page. I don't need anything complex, and I've also
Right.
provided few technicalities like add service layer, add repository layer,
Hmm.
and based on my prompt, the Copilot has generated, and I've copied it in the
All
code
right.
editor, and I'm running it. And same with
Right. Right.
Amazon
So
Q.
essentially, you're
So I
trying
have
to tell the tool that create a very simple application with some common fields that are found in these kind of applications, and don't make the
exactly
application too complex. Just come up with a simple web app as such.
right.
Okay.
So yeah, so basically it has generated, and I have copy pasted it. And
Hmm.
if I share my screen, yeah. So this is the
So.
expense tracker from
Mhm.
Amazon Q. And
Okay.
this is the expense tracker using GitHub Copilot, right? And if you can see the user experience, so it has
Hmm.
provided few drop downs,
Right.
whereas this is not, right? And so one of the main advantage I felt with respect to Amazon Q Developer was it was able to follow some of the good coding practices, and even with the UI, I mean, I know this is not very good, so it has
Right.
tried to add some of the user experience. And one of
Okay.
the
Okay.
reason why we can't generate a full-fledged application with a single prompt is that these tools have a limit. So they have a
Hmm.
token limit of 8,000 characters,
Right.
8,000 tokens. So it could be words, special characters, space, etc. If we need, it cannot. Right. So what we have to do is basically create a structure from a single prompt,
Hmm.
and then
Hmm.
try to do the incremental prompt. So for example, I can next say, ask these AI assistants to improve the screen, right? Add it, give it a better color palette, or add some background image, etc.
Right. All right.
I had
So
a
just to
question.
back it up, quickly, we gave the same prompt to both Amazon Q and Copilot. What we
Right.
see just based on the screen, what we see on the screen right now is a an app generated by Amazon Q. What I see is there are a bit more fields here as compared to, let's say, if we go to the second tab, Christopher, um, we see lesser fields. based on the intelligence that Copilot came up with. So that's one difference that I see as an audience already, without being a part of the development cycle itself.
Right.
Um, and just going back to our previous comment about what models do they use in the background, what would you say that which model did you choose for Copilot? Because you needed to choose a model, right, for developing it.
Right. Yeah. So if you see my screen, so I
Mhm.
did choose GPT 4.0.
Okay.
And if I
Okay.
change the model, I'm sure it gives a different response, right?
Right.
And here on Amazon Q, I'm not very sure, right? Because
Right.
it takes
It
them
chose by itself.
internally. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it doesn't even tell like what model it is interacting with. So it is something
Mhm.
internal to it.
Okay. Clear. Clear.
So
Okay.
that
Sorry,
is
you
the
were saying
part,
something earlier.
yeah, that is the part I wanted to highlight as well. First of all, this is amazing. Either of the tools, if you use, even in one prompt, if you are able to develop a working web app with
Right.
multiple options, on top of it, it will become easier to build but your solid base is ready.
Mhm.
Second thing, you do need to know which LLM works how. But in Copilot, if you have that understanding, then your job becomes slightly easier. In my experience, what I have seen is whenever I go for coding, I pick Claude Sonnet 3.5 and
Mhm.
the answer improves significantly over ChatGPT 4.0. So if we had tried to do similar things with the Sonnet 3.5, maybe we would
Right.
have gotten an answer either closer to what we got from Amazon Q or could have been better as well. Yeah.
Right.
All right.
I
So
think
the
that's
sense that
one
I'm
advantage.
getting, yeah,
Yeah,
Christopher, go
sorry,
ahead.
Mike. Yeah, I wanted to add. So I think that's one advantage for someone who is starting with these AI assistants, right?
Right.
So he need not to choose the best model when it comes to Amazon Q. So Amazon Q automatically gives you the better LLM model.
All right. All right. So the sense that I'm getting is that Amazon Q would stand out in terms of, let's say, user experience and quality because it chooses the model by itself, which most caters to your needs as such. While Copilot is faster because you are selecting a model which you think is the best for that experience as such. Would you agree to that analysis, Saurabh and Christopher?
Yeah, and one more thing that while recommending the tools to anyone, what I would say is for beginners who have
Mhm.
lesser understanding of the LLMs, you have an added layer of intelligence with Amazon Q. But if you're more experienced and you want to go with your own gut and with your own understanding, and you are experienced in using AIs for that matter, then Copilot could be a better choice for you.
All right, all right. So it depends on the user expertise a bit as well about which code assistant would they like to use now. And all these tools are, rapidly expanding with their abilities. So I'm sure in a month's time, maybe the user experience is completely different than what we
Right,
are speaking right now. But quickly moving to, let's say, the integration part. So if
right.
we have to integrate this with AWS, right? How do you think these tools handle AWS services, Christopher?
Yeah, Mike. So basically, I gave it a prompt. Let's say,
Mm-hmm.
I want to add the bills. I want to save the bill somewhere, right? So I need
Okay.
basically a space. So
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to integrate this with AWS S3 bucket
Okay.
and have given the exact same prompt in both the field. And
Mm-hmm.
from the result, I can see that they have almost generated the same code. So
Okay.
it was a bit of letdown for me when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
Amazon Q Amazon Q developer because I thought it would give more insights. It could give a little bit more explanation on the the AWS side, the
Mm-hmm.
infrastructure side. But yeah, I didn't find that advantage with
Okay.
Amazon Q developer.
Yeah,
All
that
right. So
part
you
was
felt similar.
surprising.
And what about yourself, Saurabh?
Yeah, that part was surprising because both the tools are coming from the same brand, so you would expect Amazon would be more in sync with AWS and the service we are getting. But
Hmm.
since Copilot did an equally good job, yeah, that part was surprising for both of us.
Okay, clear, clear. The sense that I get is for the basic task, either tool would work. But if we start going to more and more complex workflows, maybe there'll be some differences that'll start to appear. But that's maybe for a future podcast when we start going for a more
Right.
complex workflows as such. All right. So maybe you can stop sharing your screen, Christopher.
Sure.
And
Meg, maybe we can
right.
have, sorry, like
Mhm.
final thoughts kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. So this has been quite an insightful discussion, Christopher and Saurabh. Before we wrap up, let's get your recommendations. Christopher, what will be your suggestions for our listeners?
So anyone who is a beginner and who wants to start his developer journey now and he wants to use these AI coding assistants, so I would say first they should go with Amazon Q Developer because it provides an additional layer of intelligence where you do not have to worry about the LLMs that you are interacting with. And for enterprises, I believe it depends on the infrastructure and tools that they are using, right? So if you're already using AWS, so Amazon Q Developer makes perfect sense. Or if you are using
Okay,
GitLabs because it has better integration with that.
right.
When it comes to if you're using Microsoft ecosystem, I think GitHub Copilot makes a perfect sense.
All right. So it depends a bit on the context of the enterprise and the company and the environment as well. Sort of, what would be your advice?
On the similar lines, Mayank, both the tools have their pros and cons. My recommendation would be if you are creating a project from scratch, like you don't have framework, you have just opened, you have no QA, anything, no QA
Mhm.
framework and anything in place, then go for Amazon Q. Doing things from scratch works better with Amazon Q. But you have a set framework, and on top of that, you are editing, building, and doing slightly
Right.
more complex tasks, then go for Copilot. And do also go for Copilot if you need more assistance in that manner, where you are able to do technical details in more refined manner, because now
Mhm.
a lot of things have come in last 15-20 days or maybe a month.
Right.
So things like passing commands from terminal, setting your own agents, or just that edit board of Copilot has gone up quite a lot. So right now the changes that we are seeing in Copilot are way more than we are seeing in Amazon.
All right.
Speaking
Agent.
on, yeah, agentic AI has come in. You can create your agent
Right.
specifically.
Right.
You can go into edit mode. You can select your elements. So this information is on 17th of February 2025. Things can change later.
Agents. There's that word. All right. We'll cover that as a part of our future podcast as well. All right. Thank you both for sharing your insights, and thank you everyone for listening in. Uh, what we'll do is we'll come up with sprintly podcasts such as these, more and more, going a bit more into depth of different aspects of software development. What we are very interested in knowing is what tools would you prefer? And let us know in the comments or through social media. Don't forget to follow us for more podcasts of such nature. Until next time, happy coding. Thanks everyone and see you later. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.